buwan niya'y hubad at siya'y nakapa sa bukid at parang doon magkikita. Magsasaka kung siya'y tagurian, limot na bayani sa kabukiran. Asin ang lupa na pinagpala, magsasaka. Mabango ang amoy na nasa tabi mo, dahil sa pawis niyang natutuyo. Gusaling nakatas na kanyang itinayo, limot na bayani sa pagkakataon.
Can poor people in the Philippines build social enterprises that will improve their lives? This is the question that we're going to ask in this film. Hi, I'm Catherine Gibson, a geographer from Australia, interested in local communities taking charge of their economic development.
And I'm Mayan Villalba, a director of an NGO helping Filipinos help themselves.
In different ways, we've been experimenting with social enterprise development as a way of improving livelihoods and strengthening the resilience of local communities. As anyone knows who has visited the Philippines, there are stark differences between rich and poor. The economic development of the country is very uneven. There are a few booming and crowded urban centres and many more poor rural areas. What's of great concern is that the economic growth that's taken place over the last few decades has not been translated into improved living standards for rural people. One of the main options for getting ahead is for a family member to seek work overseas as a contract migrant worker. I first came to the Philippines in the early 1980s to research why people were leaving and where they were going.
It is now a well-known fact that Philippines' overseas migration has increased dramatically over the last 30 years. Many people are leaving for short-term contracts to work in construction, domestic service, health sector, and entertainment. This is where they come to attend pre-departure orientation seminars to learn about working conditions overseas. The remittances they send back are the main source of foreign currency for the Philippines. It is much larger than foreign direct investments. While millions of dollars are being sent home to families, there is very little to show for it. Most households use remittance funds to make ends meet, to improve their homes, pay for education of children, and then get papers for the next migrant to leave. Some migrants are able to begin small businesses. Baby Lioren, for example, is a migrant returnee from Japan who has set up an eatery in Metro Manila.
Now we have this business, our business, canteen business. We choose to live in the Philippines and to have our own business.
Despite these attempts, in most areas, poverty, especially rural poverty, has not declined.
This is of great concern, Mayan, and you've worked really hard to help direct remittance funds into activities that are income generating, not only income consuming. Mayan is the Executive Director of Unlad Kabayan Migrant Services Foundation. Unlad Kabayan means Progress for Overseas Workers. This NGO is working with migrants all over the world to help them save some of their wages and put it back into community development back home. But Mayan's not only an NGO worker. In 2007, she was named Philippines Social Entrepreneur of the Year by the Schwab Foundation. So perhaps this is a good time for us to explain what a social entrepreneur is and how social enterprise differs from other kinds of business.
A social entrepreneur is someone who recognizes a social problem and employs entrepreneurial skills to develop and manage a venture that creates social change. Whereas a business entrepreneur measures performance in terms of profits and returns, a social entrepreneur assesses her success in terms of the impact her venture has on society.
And a social enterprise is a business that puts social and environmental objectives on the agenda as well as profit making. It's undertaken to provide community benefit directly. In many countries of the world, social enterprises are being supported by governments because of the way they help to address social and economic marginalisation of people and places. Let's look at how some social enterprises have begun in the Philippines. Elsa was a migrant worker in Taiwan for 7 years. She comes from a farming family in northeastern Mindanao.
Matinao is a rural community. Farming is our main source of income, but income is not enough for our family needs, so I decided to work overseas. I'm working in Taiwan as a domestic helper. Actually, my employer owns a rice mill business. I'm dreaming of owning and managing my own business back home. In 2002, I was informed that there is a foreclosed property or rice mill for sale. The group decided to buy. So in 2003, we started the operation. In March 2003, after I finished my contract in Taiwan, I returned home immediately to manage the business. I seek assistance from Unlad Kabayan.
It was at this point that Unlad Kabayan stepped in to support Elsa and help her figure out how to make the enterprise viable. Mayanne, how did Unlad get involved in enterprise development?
Unlad Kabayan started in 1994 to respond to the need of migrant workers to plan their eventual return to their home communities. It developed a strategy to organize migrant savings groups, mobilize their savings to build income-generating projects at home. And in the Philippines, Unlad Kabayan started to look into business opportunities for migrant investors and to find ways to sustain these businesses and create financial value for the migrant investors.
Tell us how Unlad helped with the business at this point.
We helped Elsa put together a business plan. A rice mill cannot survive by milling rice during harvest time only. The business needs to generate income the whole year round. Otherwise, assets will depreciate without income. Elsa began rice trading, that is, buying unhusked rice or palay, mill it and sell milled rice to retailers. This way, the rice mill would be milling rice every single month. The problem was, the farmers in the community were already selling their palay to other traders, and Elsa did not have enough cash to buy their palay and compete with the traders. This is when Elsa really had to take great risks. She took out a loan and mortgaged the entire enterprise. She visited farmers and asked them why they were not selling palay to her. The answer was simple: because they were indebted to the traders for their farm inputs and were obliged to pay them in palay. Matinao Rice Center offered farm credit, and that established its customer base for rice trading. The farmers' wives, however, preferred credit in kind so that cash will not be diverted to gambling or drinking. That means supplying the farmers with inputs for agriculture and livestock on credit. Thus, the Grassroots supply store was opened and registered in 2006. Migrants from Taiwan and Korea sent additional investments, which Elsa then used to acquire a hauling truck for the palay trading and for capital of the Grassroots supply store. In 2007, the business made profits that allowed Elsa to acquire a mud boat and a rice thresher and serve the plowing and harvesting needs of farmers. This completed the whole set of enterprises to support the rice mill. as envisaged in the business plan.
Today, the Rice Centre employs 7 people full-time and 15 seasonal workers. It services the needs of 130 farmers. Its operations are supported by 60 migrant investors who all receive a return on their social investment. The net worth of the business is 3.5 million pesos, or just under 100,000 Australian dollars. The Lanao Rice Centre was the dream of one migrant worker and an investment possibility for a group of migrant savers. But the enterprise is a success story because it evolved into a social enterprise. The community helped shape the direction of economic diversification, making the enterprise more resilient to economic ups and downs. There would be no Rice Centre without the Lanao community, and perhaps less community without the Rice Centre. Our next story is of migrant savers and investors taking the lead in demonstrating that small-scale farming can be more productive. The Filipino Association for Mutual Development, or FAMDEV, is a group of domestic workers in Hong Kong. With the assistance of Unlad Kabayan, they have developed a 10-hectare crop and livestock farm near the town of Malaybalay in Bukindon, on the rich plains of Mount Kitanglad. In this part of Mindanao, agribusiness dominates the landscape. Smallholders on contract to multinational companies grow pineapples and bananas for export, and there's industrial-scale hog and chicken production. Despite the expansion of agribusiness, rural poverty and unemployment is high, especially among the indigenous tribes of the area. Profits flow out of the region, and growth is not accompanied by progress for ordinary people.
Our idea was to develop a model of a small farm that could support more than one family by doing 2 things. 1, to diversify farm activities, and 2, to minimize inputs coming from external markets. In the development phase, we experienced a number of setbacks. The local barangay of Dalwangan is very poor and infrastructure is underdeveloped. The farm needed to be connected to market roads and power and a water source. Soil quality needed enhancement and we had to control for erosion. Overseeing all these tasks was just too much for the migrant returnee who came home to manage the farm. On the recommendation of Unlad Kabayan, the investors agreed to place the farm under incubation. 2 enterprise development officers have worked with migrant returnees to continue with this complex experiment. Jojo, an agricultural science graduate, and Gigi have both played a role in implementing the integrated farm plan.
Some of the outputs are used in the farm and others are for markets. Corn and legumes are grown for feed to increase the soil fertility in the farm. Day-old chicks are grown and local farmers raise them for sale as broilers. Piglets and kids are grown for dispersal to the community. All the animal manure is used as fertilizer in the farm. Biogas is used for cooking and heating. And vegetables are grown for sale in the local markets. Organic free-range eggs are produced for sale in Cagayan de Oro. Future plans are for a feed mill to supply local farmers with inputs for their livestock.
Not only has this farm demonstrated that it can increase the productivity of land in a small farm, it has also shown that it can increase the productivity of small capital from migrant workers. Different migrant investment groups can invest in each farm activity, and this earns income for the farm as a whole. The employment capacity of the farm is between 7 to 10 workers. Each farm worker family has land for their house and a production area, and there is work for up to 60 seasonal workers. FAMDEV Farm is demonstrating technical and financial methods that can be replicated in other poor farming communities.
Ang bawat patak ng pawis nila sa buhay natin ay mahalaga, pinagpala.
The Rice Centre and Integrated Farm are social enterprises that evolved out of the entrepreneurial interests of migrant savers. We turn now to some social enterprises that have grown from the grassroots up. These are newer and smaller and started as community-based initiatives that were piloted as part of an action research project. In 2003, researchers from the Australian National University joined up in a research partnership with local NGOs in the Philippines and 2 rural municipalities to see if we could strengthen poor rural economies through social enterprise development. We're now going to visit Hagna municipality in the island province of Bohol to see what happened. Hagna has an active port that's visited by ferries and ships from around the region. The town is backed up by an agricultural hinterland of characteristic limestone or karst topography. Up in these hills there's blue streams, waterfalls and limestone caves. The farmers in the area grow rice and coconuts, and in the upland areas cooler climate vegetables and flowers. On the coastal area, families survive through fishing and trading. It all looks idyllic, but for many households it's hard to make ends meet. While there's basic food security, many families don't have enough cash to pay for transportation, school fees and healthcare. In one of the rural barangays or villages of Hagna, a remarkable group of women have started a small enterprise making ginger tea powder.
As part of the action research, we were working with communities to identify assets and capacities for local development. We come across with this group of women in Laka who are actively doing activities in support to the barangay. We also found out that there were ginger planted all over Hagna community, but there is no stable market. So having the 2 assets, the active women in Laka and the ginger, we're thinking of a potential social enterprise. Here in the Philippines, a lot of trainings have been given to people on how to make different things, but few have the practical knowledge and the resources on how to apply it to make a sustainable living. So what sort of training did the Laka group receive?
Sa Laka, duha mi ka babae nga naka-undergo training sa ginger tea processing or sa labat making. Then, sa sinugdanan, human sa among training, for consumption ra jud tong among gihimo nga among gibuhat. Then, sa ngadto-ngadto, nakita namo nga kanang potential da ini nga daghan na kinahanglat o kanang mamalitay o kanang sa labat. Mao to nga among gi-extend nga to sa among mga kahigalaan, pagbaligya.
All of the members of the Laka group are farmers, so they have access to basic food but not to cash income. So they wanted to have a regular cash income, but they don't have the idea on how to start a community enterprise. So we help them do the research themselves on business feasibility. We help them do the market study in the local market of Hagna. So they all walk from Laka to the town proper, which is about 4.5 kilometers, and they talk to people along the way and to the stall owners in the town. And they were surprised to find out that there is a great potential of this salabat. So they went back home and they are very enthusiastic in starting right away. producing ginger or the salabat. Starting with what they had, they negotiated the use of this barangay hall as their temporary production site. The Laka Ginger Group makes sure that what they are processing is of good quality, fresh ginger, so they sort it out first before washing it under running water. The clean ginger is pounded and be added with water. The pounded ginger with water will be pressed to get the juice, which will be added with sugar, which the ratio is perfected through research and development. The mixture of sugar plus the juice of ginger will be strained to make sure that it is free of solids. Now it is boiled until it becomes powder in form, which is called salabat. The salabat is allowed to cool down before packing, but it is also being pulverized before packing. And that's it. The packed salabat is ready to be marketed.
It's interesting to see how this group have incorporated local work traditions that are respected and understood into their community enterprise. Maureen, can you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, well, for example, if one of the member is sick, so she will send someone in her family in her place, and then that is basically what we call hungos, or the reciprocal sharing, practiced in local agriculture. The members also share their food, so they bring in food and other goods to share the other members with the other members during lunchtime, which is also happening like in the ordinary interaction in the community. That is also happening in the farming, like during planting and harvesting season. Aside from those, in their marketing, they established the suki system, where the seller is establishing a relationship with the buyer, which is unlike the ordinary one, like the exchange of goods with the cash. They have some practices that will ensure that the customers will always buy their product. For example, giving them discounts or leaving the product and just come back later and get the payment. So also the group is setting aside some percent, 10% of the enterprise income is a cash standing, so that if any members will need money, they can just go and ask without interest. It is basically built on trust. In terms of the future, the Laka Group is trying to maintain the quality of their product. They are also making sure that they can supply the local market before stepping into the bigger market or the national and international. They are also building an appropriate processing plant so that they can move out from the temporary barangay hall. And they were developing new products such as the sugarless ginger tea for diabetics. So, ano nakaingon man mo nga kining atong gihimo pang komunidad nga negosyo?
Para sa ang opinion, para na ho, ang mahita po gud aning among gihimong livelihood, dili lang kay usa ka tawo ang na-benefited, kun dili ang tibuok komunidad nga sa amo pong gipaningkamutan nga sa ngadto-ngadto, dili lang kay ang karon ra nga mga katawhan namo may ma-benefited hantud ang among mga sunod pa mga generation nga dili na mo ngadto sa laing lugar para manarbaho.
Ikaw lang.
Nakakwarta mi og ang laing ang dinhi sa among barangay dili lang kay dinhi lang kun dili adto pud sa laing barangay nakatabang sa kanang labi na kining sa luya.
Ikaw bakit?
Ako tigpalit din para makuha din po tatay.
Si Dadalan.
Ako nagpasalamat ko nga kini nga among trabaho nakakat-on ko og maayong mga pagtulunan.
Sa akong kabahin, dako kong pasalamat nga natuto ning ang kaning kuan sa ginger tungod kay dakong katabang sa ana labi na sa aha dakong katabang kay sa pagkasakit na ha ang among kuan kanang naay nakabahin-bahin mi gipalit na katiyos unsa sa apong panglawas doktor mo pay gibayad dako ko nagpasalamat gud ko nga kami nakatukod og ingon na ani.
Ikaw na.
Ako, nakahimo minaani, gumikan sa among pagpaningkamot nga makahimo gyud aning ginger pag unya nakakatun ko sa akong mga customer gumikan sa akong pagpasabot nila nga mo na mapalit ta mo sa among produkto kay maayo kini sa tinglawas. Na ako nakakita na gyud ko ba daghang mga customer. Na ko yan.
Tina Marina.
Ako, sekad karon murag nalipay tungod sa among pag-marketing. Daghan naming customer ba nga among pag-aatubangon, di namin mauwaw kay anad naman mi nana tungod sa among produkto dinhi sa barangay Salaka. Mura sa ako.
And si Marina.
Ako bisag tigulang na entra gihapon mao'y rimitanan sa naghalin sa produkto. Nakatabang ko na mo. Mulitira man ta ko di padayon.
Senior.
Salamat.
Ang bawat patak ng pawis nila sa buhay natin ay mahalaga.
The Laka women had geography on their side. This elderly group of women all came from the same barangay. Many of them were related to each other, and they'd worked together in an organisation for many years. What's more, they had the ingredients for their production process close at hand. This next group of social entrepreneurs from Hagna had a very difficult time of it, trying to make an enterprise making nata de coco, a gelatinous coconut dessert that's very popular here in the Philippines. This group were all members of the Small Coconut Farmers Association, but they came from different barangays across the municipality. In the late part of 2004, they started to research the feasibility of a business, and by mid-2005 they were producing regularly and selling to local customers. At the end of our project in 2006, however, production came to a standstill. So we're going to go back and find out what happened and what were the challenges that this group faced.
Ang bawat patak ng pawis nila sa buhay natin ay mahalaga, pinagpala.
Joy is a resident of Hagna and was a facilitator with our Action Research project. She helped this group to get going. They visited other community-based enterprises, received technical training, conducted market feasibility studies, and experimented with different production sites. Here she's conducting a follow-up workshop with the Nata Group to help them assess their current situation.
The Nata de Coco enterprise is just like a glass of water, half empty and half full. When we say half empty, this represents the problems or the challenges that we face. And then when we say half full, these are the assets, the successes, or the gains of the enterprise.
They all have an interest in continuing with the enterprise, so they try to identify what they still have to work with. Farmer Cecinio points out that they are all coconut farmers and want to use their coconuts to generate more income. Gingging and Rosalie identify other strengths.
Market and the local consumers. So you mean there's a good market for the local consumers, so the product is saleable.
Yeah.
And any more other assets?
We have education and trainings and many skills.
Barangay Secretary Clementina has this to say.
One of the assets that we are proud of is that being a barangay secretary, I have skills for documentations. Then our very supportive barangay officials that will always welcome us whenever we are here. In fact, they offer this barangay hall as our production site.
Then they turn to the challenges that they face. The distance between the members and the cost of transportation is a big factor.
The number one problem is the distance because I'm living the coastal area and the other members are living in the upland area.
Veni identifies the issue of coordination.
When the project ended, nobody facilitates the group.
All members of the group are keen to resume. It's not just the income that they would like, it's also the experience of working in a group that they have learnt from. Francisca, for example, is a farmer and a member of the Barangay Livestock Association. But while this program earns her money, it hasn't helped her build connections with other people across the barangay and the municipality. The Nutter Group has extended her in new directions and increased her confidence. This group have attempted something that is quite difficult in the Philippines context. They have come together across a municipality to build a social enterprise. Keeping together as a group has been hard, but there is still goodwill and the motivation to forge ahead. They're hoping for more support from their local government and NGOs to help them establish a processing plant in an accessible location so that they can get going again.
Sa bukid at parang doon makikita magsasaka kung siya'y tagumpay.
At present, it's hard to know how the fledgling Nata de Coco enterprise will fare. This story shows that social enterprise development is not easy and it takes time. Another group in Hagna found out early on that their dream of an income-generating business was way too ambitious. But this group of porters have used the experience of researching the feasibility of their dream business as a way of strengthening their organisation. And they've taken on something smaller and more manageable in the process.
Katawan niya'y hubad at siya'y nakapa sa bukid at parang doon makikita magsasaka kung siya'y tagurian limot na bayani sa kabukiran asin ang lupa na pinagpala magsasaka.
Sa pagkakaroon, kami naghulat lang yun sa pantalan kung doon ay barko kadili.
We porters are often waiting for the boat to pull into the port to earn income. We wanted to start a trucking business so that we could work more and make more cash income.
Kinahanglan mi og dugang negosyo nga mudugang sa among income. Muna nga nakauna mi og magnegosyo mi og hauling truck o hauling business.
We have 48 in our cooperative and thought we would have enough manpower to do the trucking as well. With the Action Research Project, we went to Cagayan de Oro to research the hauling business. We found out that the startup capital was huge and there was a lot of organizing involved in making the business work.
Naabot ang panahon nga nasira ang pantalan, almost half year or 6 months ang pagsira sa pantalan. We realized this was beyond the capacities of the group and also that our treasurer had mismanaged funds. So we decided to sort out our problems and to make the cooperative more democratic and active. We have turned our energies to other activities. Some of the porters have access to work in the market, in the construction, when the port is closed. Pero nagtuo mi og naa mi mga ginahuna nga makahimo mi dana
and we have built an office where we now deal with customer complaints and manage financial transactions.
So, ang among plano karon dili pagid siya ingon nga tinuod nga mga plano.
At the moment, we have no concrete plans for diversification, but we are actively talking about how we could become a social enterprise.
From the Hagner experience, it seems that community-based social enterprises can work if they start relatively small and without grand ambitions. The dressmakers of Hagner, another enterprise initiated as part of our action research, demonstrate this as well.
The members of the dressmakers group are mothers who wanted to increase the income coming into their household. They identified a market niche which they could fill in using the available skills that they have. Some of them were already dressmakers, so they already have the machines, and there were also others who were able to receive trainings in sewing. So by visiting the schools and talking to the principals and teachers, they found out that the schools around Hagna is renting out togas in the different municipalities. So they pulled in together and they decided to make 69 togas for a start so that they could supply the needs of the school. From then, they are generating income and they already supply, they make it easier for the school to have the access to the togas.
Katawan niya'y hubad at siya'y nakapag sa bukid at parang doon makikita.
In Hagna, we've seen that people are interested in social enterprise development. The Action Research Project demonstrated that people are capable of researching the feasibility of businesses that they're interested in, especially if they see that they have assets at hand that can be mobilised. They're also interested in enterprises that will have a community benefit as well as a personal benefit. Most people don't see themselves as heroic, risk-taking business entrepreneurs, but as part of cooperatives or associations, they can get to see themselves as risk-taking social entrepreneurs. This shift in perspective takes time, but the successes and setbacks are what makes the group more resilient. In Hagna, the local government has been supportive, but relatively hands-off. We turn now to a situation where community enterprise initiatives, generated as part of our action research, were strongly supported by the NGO Unlad Kabayan and the local government of Linamon in the province of Lanao del Norte, back in Mindanao. Linamon is located on the edge of Iligan City, a large industrial centre in northern Mindanao. Here, rivers that cascade from the uplands onto the coastal plain have been harnessed for hydroelectric generation, and power fuels the chemical industry, cement and flour milling, and a steel plant. Just a few kilometres from the heavy industry of Iligan City is the rural municipality of Linamon. Here, 73% of those of working age are unemployed. Many are landless and have no source of income. In the upland areas are poor tenant farmers. On the coast are fisher families. The population includes a mix of long-term migrants from other parts of the Philippines and original Muslim communities. This is an area that's had social unrest in the recent past, so there are ongoing challenges for peaceful coexistence. Linamon was another of the communities in which our action research took place. As in Hagna, we worked with community members to identify the assets they had at hand to work with. Coconuts were an obvious natural asset that were only being used for copra production. Unemployed youth and underemployed women had skills and energy to be harnessed. One youth group from coastal Linamon had been involved together in a theatre group and making T-shirts, and they decided that they'd like to try producing virgin coconut oil. Melvin Pendang was a member of this group who we recruited as a community researcher.
First, we had to learn about virgin coconut oil production by attending trainings. Then, we need to find a suitable processing area. We were lucky that the barangay of Samboron granted us to access the youth council hall for 5 years. But the building needed complete renovation. So together we upgraded the building, learning how to do carpentry, painting, wiring, and plumbing. It took a long time for water and electricity to be connected. And then we started to experiment the production. It went well, and we are happy with our efforts. But then, we had to think about marketing. We could not sell the oil for edible consumption, so we targeted the oil for cosmetic use. We now sell our virgin coconut oil to EcoWave, an NGO in Iligan City that assists another community group to make a massage oil.
Young people are hard to pin down, and of the original 23 youth trained, some have moved away. So women in the community have joined the group to assist with production management and marketing. They now have 12 young men and women and 4 older women producing regularly. At the end of our project, Unlad Kabayan continued to support the group, and Melvin began working with the NGO. I asked some of the members what they had got out of their involvement in this social enterprise.
Akong kasulti is mayo siya dahil mato siya na-enjoy ko sa mga grupong ako nakita po na kung aktibo sila. Dahil nalipay ko nakapil ka ng organization.
Magsasaka kung siya'y tagurian.
Sangat mahal king Juya ko sa mapadakan sa mga kagrupa kan tapos kitabahan na kasira na makwasiran sa income ran sa business.
Magsasaka.
I learned more products to produce.
Mabaho ang amoy na
Learn ko ani insaon pag get og another income for the family.
This group were able to push on and solve the significant challenges of enterprise development, with strong assistance from Unlad Kabayan and the barangay and municipal governments.
We are very proud to be awarded the British Council's Hatagalino Prize in 2008 for a youth-led peace project. And our future plans are to recruit more Muslim youth from upland barangays into the enterprise.
In Linamon, recent mayors have been actively improving the livelihoods of all the people in the municipality. They are focused on building a resilient and peaceful community. In 2004, Unlad Kabayan and the Linamon Local Government Unit formed a partnership to support social enterprise development. The municipality granted Unlad the use of an agricultural training institute as a SEED center. SEED stands for Social Entrepreneurship and Enterprise Development Services. This center is now a hub of community activity. From here, we offer support for the virgin coconut oil producers and the creative hands of women, a handicraft group who are making saleable products from coconut coir. It is here that the FAMDEV farm model is being replicated at a smaller scale, demonstrating integrated farm practices. A livestock raising project is helping poor upland farming families to increase their income. The carabao is used to plow the tenanted land and transport the corn to the market. The Seed Center is organizing to harness more value in the production chain for farmers, raising goats, pigs, and cows. The local government will soon make 2 premises available to be set up as halal and non-halal meat shops. And farmers will be trained to market their own meat and process them into sausages, tocino, to be sold locally and in the nearby Iligan City.
At the Seed Centre, local community members like Lilia are learning how to become social entrepreneurs.
I started with the ENU project 4 years ago. Before then, I was a livestock coordinator. I'm now also a technician working with Unlad. I gather ideas for social enterprise from poor farmer families. I take them to the mayor so that we can work together for reality. I feel more confident to take initiative.
Any shift in focus takes time, and individuals need some support as they start to take control of their own economic development. Here at the Seed Centre in Linamon, Unlad Kabayan and the local municipality have provided a fertile ground for social entrepreneurship to grow.
For more than 30 years, the Philippines has been sending migrant workers overseas. Currently, there are about 8 to 10 million overseas Filipino workers and about 1 million leaving annually. This can no longer be a stopgap measure. The remittances in 2007 amounted to $15 billion, roughly 10% of the country's gross national product. But there are more unemployed and underemployed than never before. As a development strategy, we think that overseas migration has failed. Today, one of the more hopeful initiatives for livelihoods and civic improvement is through social enterprise development. This is being spearheaded by migrant workers, grassroots community groups, non-government organizations, and innovative local governments.
As we have seen, social enterprises have a business objective, but they also have a social objective, and this is important for local development. Social enterprises can generate purposeful employment and cash income for marginalised people. They can add value to agricultural products and stop the leaks of cash out of the community by supplying products for local consumption. They can provide services for farmers at lower prices and help strengthen community resilience. They can demonstrate how poor farmers might improve their returns and keep their farms under their own control, rather than being forced into contract relationships. Most importantly, social enterprises allow people to develop as economic decision makers and actively engage citizens. With targeted assistance, poor people can take the reins of enterprise and community development into their own hands. At present, it is NGOs like Unlad Kabayan that are providing this assistance, and social entrepreneurs like Mayan Villalba who are experimenting, innovating, and testing this model of people-centred development.
A lot more could be done to help migrant investors and grassroots community groups to build social enterprises. I would like to see a new legal entity suitable to social enterprises, especially because the 30% corporate tax rate in the Philippines is a great disincentive for social enterprises to grow and scale up. Infrastructure needs improvement because the bad quality of farm-to-market roads put greater burden on small producers. Assistance in coordinating marketing efforts could ensure that small community-based producers do not compete and undercut each other. And long-term patient development capital is crucial. We must bear in mind that this is not simply a matter of building social enterprises, but changing mindsets from passive work to entrepreneurial production. The Development Bank of the Philippines offers capital for entrepreneurs, but maybe they could also support more longer-term social enterprise ventures. Finally, every enterprise needs facilitation in the early stages, and we need more people trained in social enterprise development. We need more resources to support this facilitation role.
So the answer to the question we posed at the outset is yes, ordinary people in poor circumstances can build social enterprises. There are many assets at hand that can be mobilised, and there are diverse local economic practices to be built on. But more importantly, there are people willing and capable to become social entrepreneurs. Social enterprises offer economic development that puts social value before profits.
Magsasaka kung siya'y tagurian, limot na bayani sa kabukiran, asin ang lupa na pinagpala. Magsasaka Mabango ang amoy na nasa tabi mo, dahil sa pawis niyang natutuyo. Gusaling nakatas na kanyang itinayo, limot na bayani sa pagawaan. Asin ang lupa na pinagpala, manggagawa. Ang bawat patak ng pawis nila sa buhay natin ay mahalaga, pinagpala. Maghapong nagkatayo itong guro, puyat sa mukha'y nababagas pa, lalamuna'y tuyo sa pagtuturo, limot na bayani sa paralan, asin ang lupa na pinagpala, itong guro. Ang bawat patak ng pawis nila sa buhay natin ay mahalaga, pinagpala, pinagpala, pinagpala.